Lighthouse Project ready? iTorah.com ready? Safra Synagogue ready? These are all sponsorships that support different programs. Good morning, Rabot. School Shanim Rabot. Mo'adim lesimcha to everybody on this third day of Pesach, first day of Hol HaMoed, corresponding to April the 22nd. We hope that everyone had a very beautiful 2 days of the holiday with the Seder, with the Pesach, with the Masa, with the family, with the friends, and with the community. We had magnificent holidays here. So we begin. The Lighthouse live video feed Torah project dedicated Le'ilui Nishmat Devorah Feige Bat Shemuel and Refuah Shelema of Ora Devorah Bat Rivka. The iTorah.com live audio recording Refuah Shelema David Menachem Ben Devorah Leah and Shidduch for Nehamadina Bat Hanabatia. The Edmond J. Safra Synagogue special breakfast and class for the first day of Hol HaMoed, sponsored Le'ilui Nishmat Ishaq Ben Rachel Alav Shalom, beloved father of our dear member, Mr. Ari Korkus and family. May the words of Torah and Berachot should have an Ilui Neshama for everybody's spiritual well-being. All matzah provided is Hamosi and Masa Shemura, handmade and machine-made. So please proceed to make Netilat Yadayim, and we'll do Zimun at the end of the Seudah class. The cakes and the macaroons are Shehakol. All the dairy is Halav Israel. Yochelu Anavim Beizba'u. May the humble ones eat and enjoy the Seudah. So while you eat, I'm going to talk. I have a lot of things to say because I need to catch up with the Omer. And I don't want to miss the opportunity of today attempting, Be'ezat Hashem, to cover the message of the first and second day of the Omer. The remaining days of the Omer will devote a day per class, and Be'ezat Hashem, on Sundays, we review Shabbat's counting, and this way we have the complete package of Sefirat HaOmer. A couple of halachic guidelines, which is important to remind ourselves, and we take the opportunity as well to say Hazak u'Baruch Tizku LaMizvot to the Hideri family for sponsoring the magnificent Sefirat HaOmer cards that has the number, the extra prayers, and they are free to take. They are in the front lobby right on top of the bookshelves. Make sure, don't leave home without it. Opportunity to fulfill this mitzvah. And the reason why I'm opening the class with this statement, because the Zohar HaKadosh writes and it says, do you know how to measure the Irat Shamayim of the person? Do you know how to measure the essence of the person? You know what the Zohar says? If they do the Sefirat HaOmer or not. And I'm giving you the mild translation. I'm giving you the mild translation. If you look at the original writing, it's a bit scary. The question is, what makes Sefirat HaOmer such a powerful statement that the Zohar says your goodness as a person in a spiritual level is determined by Sefirat HaOmer. Many people ignore Sefirat HaOmer because they don't know, because they don't understand. Ladies, on the other hand, don't have to do Sefirat HaOmer. Although could be in Ashkenazic traditions that the ladies may do Omer, and even in the Sephardic circles, a lady is exempt of doing the Omer. She wants to do the Omer without the Beracha, not a problem. But why a lady does not need to do Sefirat HaOmer? The Hida explains that the wife, she does her own Sefirat HaOmer every time she prepares herself to go to the mikveh. The Pasuk says, Besafra lah. She counts for herself 7 clean days. The Hida says that the wife does the counting through the Omer. Mehila, the wife does the counting through Taharat HaMishpacha, and the husband does the counting for Sefirat HaOmer. The only difference is that we do it once a year for 49 consecutive days, and the wife does it every month as long as she has a physical obligation of going to the mikveh. Besides that, the mitzvah of Sefirat HaOmer has a time frame, which we have a rule in Masechet Kiddushin, that any mitzvah that has a specific time frame, ladies are exempt. Exception to this statement will be mitzvot that have a positive and a negative. For example, Shabbat. We have the mitzvah of observing Shabbat, and we have the restrictions of what we cannot do on Shabbat. For example, Pesach. We have the mitzvah of eating Matzah and the prohibition of eating Hametz. For example, Shavuot. We have the mitzvah of celebrating Shavuot and the prohibition of working in Shavuot. So this is the basic rule. Any mitzvah that has a positive and a negative, the wife and the ladies must also observe. Now, let's give an introduction to the mitzvah of Sefirat HaOmer. Although the pasuk says, "Usfartem lachem mimachorat Shabbat," that we count for ourselves, and from here the Lacha learns that Sefirat HaOmer, every person must do Sefirat HaOmer. Every man must count Sefirat HaOmer. You cannot say, please say Omer on my behalf. No. The pasuk says, "Usfartem lachem." Lachem means each and every one of us. How do we count the Omer? The Torah tells us two different patterns of time. Tisperu hamishim yom, and the other pasuk says, "Shiva'a shavuot tispor lach." I'm throwing a lot of halachic concepts on the Omer counting because the remaining part of the class and the next few days of Shiurim, we are not going to cover halachic aspects of Omer, but we are going to discuss the spiritual message of each day of the Omer, that in that part of the class is also for the ladies as well. It's not only for the men, it's for men and women. And we'll discuss the reason why in a few moments. So therefore, since the halakha, the Torah brings me the topic of weeks and the topic of days, so when I count the Omer, I must announce the day of the Omer and the weeks of the Omer. For example, obviously today we just counted the second day of the Omer, correct? But let's say we arrive to day number 10. How do we count the Omer? Hayom asara yamim la Omer, 10 days, which are 1 week and 3 days. And this is based on the two pesukim that I quoted from the Perashah. Interesting enough, the mitzvah of Omer, shalom, the mitzvah of Omer, somebody saying shalom in the video. So the mitzvah of the Omer doesn't have any kind of symbol whatsoever. Hanukkah, you light the menorah. Purim, you read the Megillah. Sukkot, Sukkah, Lulav, Shofar, etc. No symbolism is applicable to the Omer. At the end of the day, and I should have given you this in the beginning of today's class, what is the Omer? The Omer is a measurement of barley that was offered as an offering on the second night of Pesach, which in Israel is Hol HaMoed. Outside of Israel is still Yom Tov, the second night, but in Israel, the first night, the night of Pesach is one seder only. The next day in the night is Hol HaMoed. But in the time of the Bet HaMikdash, there was a beautiful ceremony known as the offering of the Omer. And this offering consisted of barley, which in the early class, in the earlier today class from today, we ask why the Omer specifically was barley. Usually, at least in the time of the Talmud, barley wasn't for human consumption. The barley was utilized to feed the animals. Although today, and we need to be honest with ourselves, barley is also for human consumption. That's why you make cholent with barley. Or hamin, you use barley. But guess what? There was a time in history that the barley was considered a second-class type of meal that was given especially to the animals and not humans. And even a poor person will eat perhaps a less refined, a more of a coarse type of wheat, and this is how people lived. So why specifically the Omer offering was constituted of barley? Perhaps the hidden message, and that's my opinion, which I believe I saw it written in some Sefarim, perhaps the hidden message of the Torah is that if we don't refine ourselves, if we don't enhance who we are as people, we are not better than animals. What is the difference between a human being and an animal? A few differences. First of all, the brain. The brain of the person. Animals also have brain. But to very... Besiman Tov. A lot of beracha the Baal Shem Tov says. Shefa. Shefa. Don't do it again. Only one. Anyways, what is an animal? An animal has no really, great wisdom. Yes, it has wisdom, limited to its own limitation. Animals cannot speak. Animals cannot communicate with a different type of animals. In other words, they communicate among themselves. They don't even talk. They make noises, they bark, etc. Humans have intelligence. That's why inventions exist, and technology exists, and gadgets exist, and medicine exists, and doctors exist, and a lot of beautiful things that the world has to offer. Where that came from? Obviously, from human wisdom. And God forbid, we're not minimizing Hashem's involvement, but we all agree that animals are much more limited in their way. Another added benefit that a human being has is the concept of Behira Hofshit, the freedom of choice. You can decide, I'm going to eat masa or I'm going to eat macaroons. I'm going to make a coffee or I'm going to make a tea. These are simple questions. But later on in life, we come across much more challenging questions that we need to make a decision. So perhaps the hidden message of the barley offering is that we need to understand that as humans, there is something more than what we are. And it is, who can we become? And these 49 days of Omer, it will be a reviewing of areas in life that we must change in order to become a better person. And we all know the reason why specifically this topic is discussed during the days of Sefirat HaOmer. And the short answer is the unfortunate tragedy that happened with the students of Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara tells us 24,000 students died in a godly, in a divine type of punishment. There was no one to blame but to blame ourselves. And the Gemara tells us, in a short period of time, 24,000 students from the greatest Hachamim of the world died. And the Gemara gives us a reason that at time is very difficult for us to digest and to even accept. The Gemara says, because there was no respect between them. Shelo nahagu kavod ze laze. There was no respect. And I'm sure you have questions, but we're still warming up to the whole idea of Sefirat HaOmer. So B'ezat Hashem, closer to Lag BaOmer, we'll discuss this idea. But one thing is for sure, if the Gemara is telling us that the reason why these 24,000 Hachamim perish, and as I said before, it was a divine punishment. There was no one to blame. Sometimes you can say terrorism, anti-Semitism, etc. In this case, there was nothing. Each and every one of them suffer, God forbid, a catastrophic way of living the world. The Gemara gives us the condition of how they left the world. But what do we understand? That if these great men died because they were not respecting one another, so what is the message of the Omer? The message of the Omer is that I need to enhance and I need to improve my interpersonal relationship with our fellow men. If the reason why this tragedy happened, because lack of unity and harmony and respect among people, so now that I know the name of the illness, Now I'm able to say, okay, I need to take this medicine. You don't do chemotherapy for a headache, correct? What do you do for a headache? You take Advil. Sure, chemotherapy, God forbid, but I'm sorry to use such an extreme example, but what I'm trying to say is that the medicine needs to fit the condition. If the condition is no harmony among people, so what is the solution? I need to enhance my relationship with our fellow men. But once I'm taking care of my fellow men, I'm going to take advantage of the moment, and I'm going to do every day 3 levels of exercise. 1 exercise between me and Hashem, 1 level between me and my fellow men, and 1 level between me, myself, and I. This is the message of Sefirat HaOmer. We need to remember one thing. The whole purpose of us coming out of Egypt, it wasn't to become only a free nation, a wealthy nation, a mighty nation. The purpose of leaving Egypt was to receive the Torah. But we cannot forget the fact that we lived in Egypt for 210 years, and 86 of them, the last 86, were very difficult and very challenging for the Jewish people. And there was a lot of spiritual deficiencies that the Jewish people absorbed just from the environment. As the Chobat HaLevavot writes, you walk into a fish store, you're going to come smelling like fish. You go into a perfume store, you're going to smell like perfume. Same thing in Egypt. Yes, we kept certain things in Egypt, but no one can deny that we were more Egyptian than Jewish, perhaps. And that's the reason why 80% at the end, when we were ready to pack our bags and leave Egypt, 80% of them decided to stay. What for? We're going to stay. We're going to take us out of Egypt. We need to go to Israel. We need to travel. We need to receive the Torah. Too much, too much, too much. Too complicated. And unfortunately, 80% stayed behind. Only 20% came out of Egypt. Can you imagine? It's a pasuk that we're going to read next week in the Shevi'i Shel Pesach holiday, Friday morning. We're going to read this pasuk. Bahamushim alu bnei Israel. So what is Sefirat HaOmer? Sefirat HaOmer, besides the halachic aspect of the counting of the Omer, is the message that every day Sefirat HaOmer brings upon us. And how do we arrive to that message? In order for us to understand that, we need to understand what is the meaning of Sefirah. Sefirah, we say the beracha, Asher kiddeshanu v'mizvotav besivanu, al Sefirat HaOmer. Al Sefirat HaOmer. Sefirah means, literally means counting of the Omer. The counting. But Sefirah also means the Sefirot. What are Sefirot? Sefirot are God's illumination into the physical world. And there are 10 illuminations or 10 Sefirot that exist in the world, that run the world, that help us connect with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. 3 of them are intellectual. Chokhmah, Binah, Da'at. Wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Which, by the way, this is part of our daily prayers. In the first blessing of Atah Honen, what do we say? Behonenu meitecha, Chokhmah, Binah, Bada'at. Wisdom, knowledge, wisdom, understanding or comprehension, and knowledge. These 3 words, although are connected to the intellect of the person, each one carries a different way of understanding things of Torah in life, etc. And that's why you have, for example, Chabad Lubavitch. Okay, Lubavitch is the name of the city in Russia, correct? In English means city of love. But also Lubavitch carries the word Chabad. Chabad, Chokhmah, Binah, Da'at. A very philosophical Hasidic movement. Now, then you have the 7 emotional illuminations of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Nesach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet Nesach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. Each and every one of these 7 Sefirot, they are connected to the Ushpizin. Ushpizin means Abraham, Ishaq, and Yaakov. Abraham is the host of the first week of the Omer. Ishaq is the host for the second. Yaakov the third. Moshe fourth. Aharon fifth. Yosef 6th week. And David HaMelech the 7th week of the Omer. Like in Sukkot, every night we welcome the Ushpizin. Every week of the Omer, we welcome one of the Ushpizin. And guess what? Abraham Avinu is the host of the week, but who did he welcome last night? Ishaq. And who is he going to welcome tonight? Yaakov. And tomorrow, Moshe and Aharon. And this welcoming and host is illustrated into the Sefirah per se, which we're not going to talk today about the actual Sefirot. We'll save it for tomorrow, Be'ezat Hashem. But I'm going to continue talking about the fundamental understanding of the Sefirat HaOmer, which, if you remember, Erev Pesach, we discussed how the Ke'ara, in a way, represents the 10 Sefirot. The 10 Matzot, Chokhmah, Binah, Da'at. The Zeroah, Moshe. The Betzah, the egg, Aharon. The Maror, Abraham. The Hazeret, Ishaq. The Haroset, Yaakov. And the Karpas, Yosef. And the tray itself, David HaMelech. So even in the Ke'ara, like in the Omer, like in the Sukkot, we always connected to the 7 Ushpizin. Why do we need to connect to the 7 Ushpizin? Because this is how HaKadosh Baruch Hu manages and runs the world. Through kindness, through discipline, through truth, through eternity, through beauty, splendor, foundation of holiness, and kingdom. And as we move day after day in the counting of the Omer, we are refining ourselves more and more and more. And we need to remember that when we left Egypt, we were not ready to receive the Torah. We needed to warm up. We needed to be in training for 49 days. Why? Because the Jewish people, unfortunately, in Egypt, arrived to the Memtet Sha'areh Tum'ah, to the 49 degrees of impurity. And every day, we climb one more day, one more step, until we arrive to ground zero. We arrive to ready to receive the Torah. In other words, we went through a rehab center constituting of 49 days, and every day of the 49 days carries a different message of self-improvement. The first week of the Omer, we talk about the Midah of Hesed. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you quickly the Siddur. What does it mean, the Omer, in the Siddur? You see the blessing? You see the Beracha? The Beracha. Then you have, for example, let's look at the first day. Hayom Yom Echad LaOmer. Underneath, you have different letters and different words. So one word belongs to Lamnaseach in the shape of the menorah. That's why it says Elokim. The next one is Anna. The first word of Anna Vekoach Gedulat Yeminecha, which look at the end of the Omer. What do you see? Lamnaseach Binginot Mizmor Shir and Anna Vekoach. Each one of them, directly and indirectly, contain 49 words. And every word connects to a different day of Sefirat HaOmer. But the ultimate message, going back to the regular counting, is actually, here. For example, the first night of the Omer, we have the Sefirah of Hesed, Sheva Hesed. Last night, second day of the Omer, we have Gevurah, Sheba Hesed. These are the idea of the Sefirot. What does that mean? What does this word mean? So first, and we'll finish today's class. I know we started earlier than usual due to the lengthy prayer today, but it doesn't matter. If we cover half an hour in learning, we are considered very fortunate. Let me introduce this concept with the topic, with the mitzvah that exists in the Torah. I'm not sure if actually it's a mitzvah from the Torah or it's actually a way of life. The Pasuk writes, Kedoshim tihiyu, Kedosh ani Elokechem. And you must have holiness, Kedusha. It's not having ice cream, or not having chocolate, or not having matzah with cream, cheese, and apricot jelly. None of the above. A person can achieve holiness in every way of our life. Our mission is to challenge the holiness in an appropriate manner. The world. The Torah Hesed. The Torah begins by telling us how Hashem covered the body of Adam and Hava. This was the opening statement in the Torah Hesed. The Torah concludes with Hesed, as the Pasuk says that Hashem buried Moshe Rabbeinu. Another Pasuk says, Olam Hesed Ibaneh. Have three components for the proper existence of the world. Ala Torah, ala Avodah, be'al Gemilut Hachaim. The study of Torah, the prayer, and the act of kindness. These three components, they must exist in the world for the world to function. Now, since this is all about kindness, let's understand what kindness means. Sometimes people confuse unkindness. Sure, the word kindness may be a global word, because when you give tzedakah, you are performing an act of kindness to someone else. But the Gemara, and I said this yesterday afternoon, but obviously no recording during the Yom Tov, the Gemara in Sukkah asked an interesting question. What's better, charity or kindness? Guess what? The Gemara says charity, it's limited. Charity is with money. Charity is to a needy person. And charity is when the person is alive. Hesed, kindness, completely different. You can help someone that is alive. You can help someone that is no longer among the living. Meaning to say, when you say le'ilui nishmat someone, when you dedicate, like today, we have a dedication le'ilui nishmat someone. That is a hesed to that neshama. So the person doesn't need to be alive to be a recipient of an act of kindness. Now, let's talk about hesed. Hesed is not only lending money or giving money. Sometimes hesed could be giving someone a good advice, or giving someone a word of encouragement, or giving someone a ride to the airport, or helping an elderly person cross the street. This is hesed with your body, hesed with your money, hesed with your speech. Imagine yourself, you talk to someone, and your words penetrated into the heart of this person. And now because of you, this person now starts eating kasher. Or this person now doesn't work on Shabbat. Or this person now was about to do an avon, and you stopped him and you saved his life. Guess what? This is hesed bediburo. Hesed with your speech. So we understand, based on all these examples, that hesed supersedes tzedakah by far. And I believe that the example of the Gemara was very, very, very clear. So let's talk a minute about Abraham Avinu alayhi shalom. Abraham Avinu lived a very difficult life, especially in the environment that he was raised, in the city where he lived, in the generation that he lived. That what happened? People in those days were not believers in a Kadosh Baruch Hu. They were involved in Avodah Zarah, including his own father. Abraham Avinu was thrown into the fire for believing in Hashem. That's part of our daily prayers by Baruch David. But yet, the Pasuk tells us, Baita Eshel Bibe'er Shaba. Abraham Avinu opened up a kosher hotel in the city of Beersheba. Eshel Achila Shetia Lina. A place where to eat, a place where to drink, and a place where to sleep. And what do you think that Abraham Avinu did when visitors used to come to visit him? He will talk to them. He will engage in conversation, helping them to understand the essence of Hashem, the essence of godliness, and not to believe in a statue that was manufactured 2 hours earlier in the day. And that's what the Pasuk says. Bet nefesh asher asu beharan. The souls that he created in Haran. You know what's the meaning of the word Haran? Haran was the worst place of the world to be. Haran means Haron apo shel makom, that the citizens of this town will trigger Hashem's anger because of their behavior. And yet, there Abraham Avinu was able to bring godliness into the world. As our holy rabbis tell us, Kesat or dohe arbe min hachoshech. A little bit of light dissipates a lot of darkness. And this was the lifetime mission of Abraham Avinu, to do Hesed, not with food, not only providing free food, as Abraham Avinu, the Midrash tells us, that when people finish eating, people wanted to offer money to Abraham. How much do I owe you? Abraham says nothing, it's on the house. But say thank you. So what people used to do, they used to praise Abraham. Like Abraham, God forbid, was a god. So Abraham says, no. You have to thank God. He says, aren't you God that provides us for food? Abraham Avinu says, no, I'm a human being. So who is this God? And Abraham Avinu will utilize that conversation to explaining to the people what is the idea of Hashem, what is the emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is the foundation of Hesed. This is the foundation of kindness. To illustrate this, with your permission, I'd like to go 2 more minutes, and then Be'ezrat Hashem will finish the class. Hesed, if you think for a moment, Hashem, God, is all Hesed. All Hesed. Occasionally, we may get a wake-up call. But the majority of the days and the majority of our life, the world survives on the essence of kindness. Not only that, if you think for a moment, the word Hesed, the numerical value is 72, which 72 represents to Hashem holy name, Shem Av, the holiest name of Hashem of the Bet HaMikdash. So what does it mean? That Hashem injects the world constantly. As the Pasuk says, Amehadesh betubo bechol yom tamid ma'aseh vereshit ka'amur le'oseh orim gedolim ki le'olam hasdo. What do we say? Hashem renews the world every day because Hashem's kindness is forever. So like Hashem is kind to us and benevolent and generous, we need to mimic that and reciprocate it to our fellow men, to our spouse, to our children, to our families. Even though that sometimes the person may not be deserving of Hashem's constant flow of blessing, because the person may have a couple of hiccups. But Baruch Hashem, Borei Olam doesn't remove His blessing from the person. And this is an opportunity also that a person must recognize the constant hasadim that Hashem does to us. That a person is able to function, that a person wakes up in the morning, that a person is able to walk, to talk, to see, to sense, to smell, to earn parnasah, to have a family, to have relatives, to have friends, to have family, to have a spouse, to have a parent. All these are part of the hasadim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So part of the mission is not only to reciprocate the kindness to another human being, obviously in the limitation that a human being has. We're not expecting that a person is going to become God because we are humans. But in our limited fashion, we need to mimic in a way what Hashem does. This is the opening statement for the introduction to the topic of Sefirat HaOmer, which basically, in a nutshell, is a spiritual refinement exercise. And in this, no one is exempt. Husband and wife, men and wife, men and ladies, all of us we do have an area in our life that requires refinement. This is how Hashem made us. Hashem created us with a certain glitches in order for us to work on them, in order for us to repair them. It's not impossible, but it requires effort. So Be'ezat Hashem, Beli Neder, tomorrow we start dwelling into the day-by-day message, and Be'ezat Hashem, everybody will have not only a beautiful Chol HaMoed and final days of Pesach, but also a very meaningful day of Omer. As our Rabbi say, the idea of the Omer is not only to count the days, but to make sure that every day also counts. Do you comprehend? Understand the difference? I did the Omer. Hayom, Shnei Yamim LaOmer. Okay, next. What did you do today? What did you change today? Nothing. So what did the Omer do to you? That's the idea of Omer. We need to change. It's not automatic, but it's not impossible. So, but we put the effort, we share the daily message, Be'ezat Hashem, and with that, when Shavuot comes, we're going to show Borei Olam that we are different. Not externally, internally, which is much challenging than changing externally. Externally, you go to the mall, you spend a couple of dollars, you do a couple of exercises, you eat better, you eat healthier, you lose a couple of pounds, hopefully, right? I'm not sure with the matzah now, but, post-Pesach, I think that we all go into a mini diet to let the body rest anyways. But internally is the ultimate change and improvement in the life of the person. May everybody have a good Mo'ed, Mo'adim L'Simcha, Hagim Ozanim L'Sason, Tizkor Shanim Rabot to everybody. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen.